Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another of these brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur Series Wave 3 figures, and this time we've got ourselves the Tarbosaurus, and this one looks awesome. And one of the reasons I think I'm such a big fan of this one is because even though you often get quite kind of flashy color schemes with a lot of the Tyrannosaurs, I think they overall usually look pretty natural anyway. This time we have a lot darker as far as the coloration goes, which I think makes this one look, extra natural, if that makes any sense. I just feel like the coloration of this one just looks a lot, closer to what I would expect to see on a Tyrannosaur. Even if the other ones do always look, good and natural, I just feel like this one looks really, really good and natural. But you can see as far as the box art goes, we've got, of course, the window area, as well as a gorgeous image there of the Tarbosaurus to the right. And then if we turn the box around, you can see here on the back, again, a nice shot of the figure itself, as well as a checklist down here, basically, of the other figures that are in this wave, only one of which so far we have reviewed. And actually, I just realized there's a little mishap here on the back because it states that this is the Gorgosaurus, when in fact that image is actually the Tarbosaurus. But the only one we have reviewed so far would be the Albertosaurus up until this point, which means we've got some more really fun ones to go after this. But you can see again the back of the box looks really nice, so as always, let's pop this box open and check it out. We begin with the assembly instructions, and I cannot state this enough that you definitely should read this, pay attention to it. If you're familiar with the figures, of course, it's not something that you need to be worried about, but if you are unfamiliar with them, if you've never ordered from the Beasts of the Mesozoic before, you really need to read this and pay attention to the way that you should assemble the figures. And then, of course, we also have our collectible card, and you can see the card has some of the nicest artwork I think we've seen through the course of this entire line. That is absolutely beautiful. And then if we turn it around, we have an image of the Tarbosaurus itself, the figure, and you can see some information and everything all about it as you move down through the course of the card. Love the fact that they continue to include these cards. On top of that, we also have the base. The base, to me, looks like it's probably the same base we had seen with the Albertosaurus, but obviously painted a bit differently as we have like grayish tones and stuff, whereas the Albertosaurus, I think, had more brownish tones. We've also got the alternate legs, again, because you always want to have those extra legs that you can exchange on the legs of the Tarbosaurus that we currently have in, because these ones sport more articulation, which helps for more posability and just more display options. On top of that, you also have the alternate feet, and the alternate feet basically just have different positioning for the toes to kind of give you that sort of walking motion, or like the leg kind of extended out as it's walking with the toes sort of trailing and stuff. Like you could switch the feet out basically to perfect the diorama that you would like to create with your figures. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, this line gets tougher and tougher to decide as I go what my favorite is. I think these figures were released in perfect fashion and perfect order up until this point, because I feel like these figures from Wave 3 are probably some of the most impressive overall, because here is our Tarbosaurus, and look at how beautiful that is. That is absolutely gorgeous looking. Like, this is definitely one of my favorites overall. Just like I said with the Albertosaurus, I thought the Albertosaurus might be my favorite overall. I don't know. I mean, this Tarbosaurus may have just jumped into that slot as well, because the coloration just looks so much nicer in person than I was expecting it to. The sculpt looks great, and I expected that, of course, because if it's a Beasts of the Mesozoic figure, the sculpt is always going to look fantastic, but the paint apps of this one just look way better in person than I was expecting them to look. But man, such a gorgeous figure, and definitely I would say the best Tarbosaurus now in my collection. So as always, let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at this absolutely amazing Tarbosaurus. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Tarbosaurus, you can see the scale detail looks really, really nice, and not only really nice but really crisp. And you can see, of course, in typical beasts of the Mesozoic fashion, we have quite a bit of variation to the scale detail. Again, really nice finer scaling there in the palate area, larger scaling running along the jawline, some larger scales down here. Very similar to the way that the Albertosaurus was sculpted, but we obviously have differences when it comes to the head sculpt. You can see that there's some really nice creasing and stuff here in the eye area, in the eye socket. The eye is painted with a yellow, giving a nice black pupil. Also sports a beautiful gloss coat, giving it that perfect eye shine. The nostrils are sculpted as well, even some creasing there kind of around the nostrils. Same deal for up here. Again, really nice looking detail. You've got some variations of browns up here, but in the face you have like a very dark brown and some black tones here in the face, and they've done such a great job of kind of combining them in such a super subtle way that you almost can't even take notice to the differences in color until you really get it in person, I think, and take a nice look at it in a nice light. There's also some lighter tones that kind of run along the jawline, like some light grays that you can see right there that follow along the jawline. There is definitely one area you can see a little variation to the browns kind of popping up, and you've got another area of brown right there. Of course, we've got ourselves an articulated jaw for the figure that's about as wide open as it goes. And then if you take a look at the inside of the mouth, we do have a really nice tone of color in there, nice pinkish tone. I think we would have an articulated tongue, but I don't know that I'll actually be able to get my finger in there to get it. I might have to grab something to push that tongue up to articulate it, but you can very clearly see that that tongue is articulated and also nicely sculpted. But you can see all the teeth sculpted out, again, sculpted individually, and they are absolutely perfectly painted, as you always find when it comes to the beasts of the Mesozoic. There is never any sloppiness when it comes to the paintwork, or at least not that I can recall ever encountering. So all of the teeth look great. You can see the gloss coat on the inside of the mouth, giving it that nice saliva-like look. We even have the throat back there and everything. Really well done overall. As you move back here into the back of the head, you can see the ears sculpted out. You can also see some very nice looking scale detail as you lead up here into the back of the neck. We continue to have those variations of the darker tones, which I think just looks so nice on the figure. Absolutely fantastic coloration on this one. And as we move down here, we have this really nice kind of like an orangish sort of brown running along, and then some yellowish tones for the underbelly. And that area, of course, is pretty flashy, but I absolutely think it looks as natural as it gets, and those tones of color just play off of each other really, really nicely overall, and definitely have quite the appealing look to them. We also start to pick up some variation of color. As you can see, some lighter variations of brown kind of creeping in. They're still fairly dark variations of brown, but in comparison to the coloration of the body, they're pretty light. We do, of course, also have articulation in this area. You've got, the articulation at the bottom of the neck, and you can see a little area up here at the top of the neck. So you do have some really nice posability. And just like with the Albertosaurus, you can see that that neck can turn to the side really nicely. I don't know, I'm kind of at an awkward angle, but I can assure you that the neck articulation is really smooth on this one, just like it was with the Albertosaurus. We can also go up about that high, and then actually you can go down pretty good. That's actually better than the Albertosaurus had going on, so that's definitely really cool as well. As you move down into the body, you can see the creasing right here behind the arm. You can also see, again, more of that brown kind of showing up here. You can see a light grayish tone here briefly before it transitions down to a different variation of like a brownish tone. And the patterning and designing there is really cool as well. I love that it's not overly bright, but just subtle enough that you can very clearly see the differences in coloration. I think that is a really nice looking paint application for the figure. As you move down, the arms are just primarily a darker tone. You can see the nails are painted out, and you can, of course, see that there is a lighter tone for the undersides of the arms as well. If you happen to have caught my Albertosaurus review, I would think that the articulation is going to be the same through almost this entire figure as it was with the Albertosaurus. Again, you've got the shoulder articulation, and then you also have the elbow back and forth, as well as the wrist back and forth. And you can, of course, swivel all of these joints except for the elbow. I mean, I guess technically you could, swivel the elbow a little bit. But as you move back up into the stomach, you've got more skin wrinkles and skin folds and stuff as you lead out. You also have an area of separation again for another articulated joint in the midsection, which allows some left and right action as well as up and down. You don't have too much when it comes to the mobility of that area, but enough, obviously. You don't want too much because, otherwise you're breaking the spine of your poor Tarbosaurus. As you move up here toward the top of the body, you can see the black tones leading along, and they're kind of diminishing at this point because we have the darker browns overtaking the majority of the figure at this point. As you lead down through the thigh, you can see again the nice muscle definition. You can also see variation of color as you have a different variation of brown compared to the kind of darker variations of browns and blacks that we have here. Then you have the lighter browns running along the front of the thigh. It just looks really, really cool. We also have a yellowish tone here in the back as well as a lighter tone as you move further back into the back of the thigh. More really nice looking detailing when it comes to the skin wrinkles and folds and stuff. You can see the knee right there as you lead down into the big bulging calf muscle. Again, you have the lighter tones moving along the back of the dinosaur, the darker tones kind of striping in from the front, as well as a different variation of brown right there. And then as you move down into the foot sculpt looks really nice. Again, you've got some more variations of browns. I could definitely see at least 2 variations of browns down here in that foot sculpt. Also some nice scoots running down through the front of the foot, down into the toes. The nails are painted with a nice glossy black. Of course, the same deal for the dew claws. So everything in the feet also looks really good. And then as you lead up here into the tail, we've got the wrinkling and creasing there back behind the tail, as well as a striping effect as we move out. Kind of pretty much the same as what we had seen in the stomach right there, but kind of leading along the lower part of the tail. As you lead out through the course of the tail, you do start to see that striping kind of diminish, and then we reach a certain point, and then the remainder of the tail is just that dark tone. If you lead along the underside, you may not have even noticed, but we do have that kind of striping effect moving along through the underside, kind of breaking up the yellowish tones of the underbelly of the dinosaur, which is a pretty cool little addition when it comes to the paintwork. I definitely like that. As far as the articulation back here, of course, we also have the hip. Again, as I said, if you saw the Albertosaurus review, the articulation is going to be all the same, pretty much anyway. You've got the knee right there, and then the opposing legs would have more articulation. Obviously, that's where the articulation ends on this one. But if you bring in the opposite legs, you do have 2 extra areas of articulation in those. And then you move up into the tail, and for some reason, I think the Albertosaurus had 1 extra joint of articulation in the tail, but I could be wrong. But you can see, again, you can articulate the tail left and right, up and down, as well as swivel if you choose. You've got another spot right here, and then as you lead out, you've got 1 more spot right here as we, transition to the wire tail for that remainder of the dinosaur. And you can see, of course, the opposing side is going to look pretty much the same. No real big differences, of course, on one side compared to the other, but it is absolutely drop dead gorgeous no matter what way you're going to look at it. This is easily one of the best, in my opinion, from this entire series. And then we've also got the base, and as I said, the base appears to be the same base exactly as the Albertosaurus, but just painted differently, where we now have like grayish tones for the stones and rock formations and stuff, compared to the brownish tones we saw on the Albertosaurus version. And then you can see variations of greens here in the vegetation, as well as kind of like some browns showing up here and there. And again, the stick and everything sculpted out and painted over here. It looks really good. They definitely did a great job on the coloration, of course, and the sculpt of this base. A really nice addition, of course, to our Tarbosaurus. And then the alternate legs, you can see again, the sculpt looks great. The paintwork looks great, nice and consistent, the way it should look compared to what we saw on the opposing legs, the other legs that are on the figure right now, or just in general the body. But obviously we've got the extra articulation right here, and these areas can swivel also, and they go back. And then the area articulation right here in the foot, again, you can kind of go down, up, left and right, basically wherever you want, again, with that foot. And you can also pop that foot off to pop in the alternate feet to use for your figure. So of course, it's always really fun to have these extra legs with extra articulation. As far as a size goes, when it comes to a length, you were looking at right about 20 inches or around 51 centimeters. And then for a height, and of course it's in the position that it's in currently, you can alter it as much as you want to make the dinosaur stand a lot taller, but about 6.5 inches currently in the position it's in, or just a little under 17 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being next to our beasts of the Mesozoic Tarbosaurus, and you can see that the figure absolutely sports a very nice, very impressive size. Definitely the biggest Tarbosaurus that I have in my collection, I know that much for sure. We also have the beasts of the Mesozoic Tarbosaurus next to the Albertosaurus, the figure that we also recently reviewed, and even though it kind of looks like the Tarbosaurus is a little bit longer, that's just because the figure is a little closer to us currently. This confirms that they are absolutely the same in length and everything, the same in size overall. So again, if you are familiar with the comparisons that we did yesterday, I really don't think we need to do too many comparisons this time around because, again, it's the same size as the figure yesterday. This also confirms that I'm completely insane. It has absolutely the same joints that the Albertosaurus had, so don't know why I was thinking that it had more when it comes to the articulated joints on the Albertosaurus, but you can again see that they are exactly the same size. And then, even though it was quite difficult to actually get this out of the spot that I had it in, I did have some people asking in the Albertosaurus review for a comparison with the 1/18th scale Tyrannosaurus. Even though I explained in the video why I couldn't get to that one, I still dug it out anyway, just because I wanted to let the people see, again, the comparison that they wanted to see. So here is a comparison with the 1/18th scale Tyrannosaurus Rex next to the Tarbosaurus, and I also wanted to bring in the Albertosaurus for one more comparison, just in case anybody wanted to see that one from yesterday. Again, here is a comparison with the Albertosaurus next to the Tyrannosaurus Rex as well. So this brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur Series 1/18th scale Tarbosaurus is absolutely awesome, and this line as a whole has honestly been incredible. Everything that has come out in this line is honestly a dream come true. Like, they are all dream-worthy figures. There's just not a single one that I could say was even slightly a letdown or anything like that. Now, of course, I haven't run through the entire line, but this far in, again, with Wave 3, I'm pretty confident they're all going to be incredible, and that opinion is not going to change. But this Tarbosaurus, again, is probably one of my favorites from the line as a whole. It is just so nicely done, and the sculpt is great, the species is great, and of course, the paint apps are great. And this one specifically, I think I like so much because the coloration is, again, so kind of dark and just not really so flashy or has like any kind of crazy intricate patterning or anything like that. It does have some fun patterning, but it's nothing that's over the top, and it's nothing that I think would look even remotely unnatural if I had seen this, you know, like a real living, breathing version of this dinosaur in person. This is exactly what I would expect it to look like, pretty much. Definitely, again, really perfectly, in my opinion, painted and designed when it comes to the paint scheme. I just think it looks great, but it does, again, even with the darker tones, it does still have some elements of flashiness with the yellowish tones and everything on the underside, which is a really nice touch. But again, the actual sculpt itself perfectly replicates a Tarbosaurus, in my opinion. The fine detail is fantastic. It has all the skin wrinkles and everything, and like the movement shown exactly as you would want to see. The detail is very crisp, it's very vibrant, so that's always a great thing, and again, is just in general one of the most impressive Tarbosaurus sculpts I've ever seen. On top of all of that, you also have articulation. Of course, when it comes to a Beasts of the Mesozoic figure, you're going to have articulation, and the articulation is extremely smooth, and honestly, I would say Wave 3 probably sports some of the smoothest and best articulation that I've encountered in this line as a whole, because the necks and everything specifically, that's one area where it was really quite stiff, especially if you go back to the original few Tyrannosaurus Rex figures that released. The necks were pretty stiff and a little hard to articulate, whereas that is not the case whatsoever with these newest figures. The articulation and the neck and legs and everything, it's all extremely smooth, making it, you know, quite easy to give yourself some super cool poses with your figures. And then, of course, you have alternate legs, you've got the base, you have the alternate feet. Everything all adds up to one amazing release, yet again, from the Beasts of the Mesozoic. So if you are interested in picking this up for yourself, again, as I had said recently, these are about to begin shipping very soon. I was lucky enough to get this one a little bit early from David Silva, so a massive thank you goes out to David for allowing me the pleasure of checking this out a little bit early on the channel with you guys. But if you are interested in grabbing one for yourself, make sure you check the link that I will include in the description, where you you can head on over and get it for the pre-order price right now before the price increases once the figure is actually in stock. So make sure you check the link. Go grab this absolutely epic Tarbosaurus, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.